This video is to demonstrate the use of the BW3 bushing wrench for total disassembly and reassembly on a 1911. Basically, of course, any firearm, you want to clear it before you even attempt to do any kind of disassembly. But once that's done, barrel rod, which needs to be specific to the caliber that you're doing. So in this case, 45 for the 45. If you got a 10 millimeter or 40 cal, this barrel rod. If you got a 9 millimeter or 38 super, this barrel rod. Barrel rods are interchangeable. They just unscrew and screw in. Basically, you insert the rod, you bring it down over the lip of the bushing on the plunger, which this part right here is the plunger. This part right here is the spanner peg, which will actually turn the bushing. Press down, turn. You're free. Okay, at that point, you're going to remove your guide rod or spring and plug assembly. Your second step would be to remove your bushing. And I didn't note this to begin with, but it's always a good idea just to throw the safety on for the simple fact that it helps prevent the slide from moving, which it did move just a little bit. I just pulled it up, but that does prevent it from moving and makes things simpler sometimes. So your next step, once you've reached that point, of course, is to remove the slide stop. And to do that, you just move the slide back until it lines up, and then push your slide stop out. And then your slide, of course, comes off. And then you remove your guide rod and your barrel. When you're finished cleaning, doing whatever, put the barrel back in. Make sure the barrel goes all the way back and rests in its lugs. Put your link back. Reinsert your guide rod into the apron. You want to make sure the cutout side, bottom cutout side, half moon looking part is facing down against the barrel. It's always a good idea to hold the barrel a little bit with some, I use my thumb just to keep everything in place so that when you turn it up, it doesn't fall. You want to line up your link so that the hole is fully exposed, and then reinsert onto your slide. And in this case, if you hang up at all on your guide rod, you can move it a little bit to get it out of the way. The other thing is you're going to come over this disconnect in the rear, which is going to give you a little bit of resistance. In some cases, the ejector back here doesn't perfectly line up, and you have to kind of move the slide. But in most cases, things will just kind of slip back together. But you want to take it back far enough that you can see the hole. And I don't know if you can see it in the video, the hole all the way through. Once you get it to that point, it's a good time to drop your pin in. Once your pin is dropped in, just leave it hanging. Move back until now your takedown notch is lined up. Now, I'm going to use my slide stop horn for this, just because this really hasn't been taken apart that many times. Okay, once that's done, then you just bring the slide forward. We engage the safety, stand it on end, and if you'll notice, the guide rod now has centered itself. That's because it's seated in the frame and is basically balanced there. You want to reinstall your bushing and turn it all the way to the unlock position. Now you're ready to put your spring assembly back in, spring and plug back in, and of course the close end goes in first. Pigtail end is on the plug side. Once you've done that, it's just a simple matter of taking and inserting the barrel rod, capturing your in the cradle of the plunger, capturing your spring plug. You can use your finger wrap kind of around if you need to guide it. Just bring it down, and re-engage the bushing with your peg, and turn, and you're there. And that's it. I mean, of course, there are different issues that can happen on a 1911, especially on a new one that's stiff and hadn't broken in well. One of those things is these plungers, and on anything that's got a finish other than, you know, just straight stainless steel or something like that, or a finished steel surface, typically also has a little bit of problem with the plunger in the plunger tube not having seated in. And the best way I've found to deal with that is to actually just take once you've got the slide and the frame and everything apart. In fact, we'll go ahead and do that. And it's a real quick, easy deal to show if I haven't lost my pencil. Yeah, I see it. Okay, with the slide off, you take a little oil, put on that plunger, and work it with the flat end, unsharpened end of a pencil. Just work that back and forth on a new one to loosen it up so the surfaces start to mate and there's plenty of oil there. That will help on the first time reassembly, especially when you go to reinsert that slide stop, make it go a lot easier. But that's it in a nutshell. I don't know what else I could tell you, you know, to help, but it's pretty straightforward when you kind of follow the steps. Sometimes you're going to run into trouble with the link not lining up. You have to pull the slide back off, kind of reposition it. Sometimes you have to stick something down in there and kind of wiggle it to get it lined up again. But if you're careful putting the slide on and not allowing that link to move, it's generally just right where you need it, as long as you spot it coming through down that hole. And of course, it's going to be more difficult on some 1911s that have a flush. If you'll notice, this slide stop sticks out on this side. A lot of them, though, and especially more expensive ones, will have it flush and it'll be squared in. Those are a little more difficult to get lined up a lot of times. But this ends up being, in my opinion, the best, easiest way type of slide stop to end up getting in, because it's rounded, so it kind of guides itself in if that link hole's not exactly perfect. But beyond that, that's it for a nutshell. I can't think of anything else I could tell you on disassembly and reassembly at this point. I appreciate you watching.